And so this term that's in verse 2, I'm sorry, it's in verse 1, whose sin is covered, is the same you see in Psalm 85, verse 2, which literally means covered, or concealed, or hidden, possibly with the context we see in other places of protection, or possibly for clothing, just to clothe oneself. And the way we see this is that God graciously blots out the sin. He covers it, he doesn't hold it against the sinner. He doesn't punish it as it ought to be punished, choosing instead to heap the punishment, to close the gap here, on Jesus on the cross. And I just love how Matthew Henry says it. I mean, Jesus on the cross is the linchpin that brings God's judgment and God's mercy together. He's able to be merciful to sinners and just at the same time, and not just turning a blind eye to sin, by punishing Jesus on the cross and imputing our sin and the punishment for our sin onto Jesus. And let me read this by Matthew Henry. The way he puts it in his commentary: when sin is pardoned, it is covered, or from the, when I mean by what he means by pardoned is he's referring to sins are covered in verse 1. When sin is pardoned, it is covered with the robe of Christ's righteousness. Just love that imagery. It is not. It is the not imputing of iniquity, not laying it to the sinner's charge. The righteousness of Christ being imputed to us, and we being made the righteousness of God in him, our iniquity is not imputed, God having laid upon him the iniquity of us all. That is, laying it on Jesus, which we read in Isaiah 53, not the Jesus part, but the laying on the iniquity of us all. Isaiah 53, verse 6. And made Christ sin for us. 2 Corinthians 5:21. So it's this propitiation, this idea of we have sinned, but God is so merciful and just to forgive us. He covers up our sin, but he doesn't just cover it up and sweep it under the rug. He covers it by placing it on Jesus, and he covers us from, in protection or in clothing, from the elements of the punishment. And instead, he places the punishment on Christ on the cross. And that is the central New Testament full understanding of this passage. And how is God able to be so merciful? Because Jesus is there standing in our place.